Disclaimer. I am a law student, and the legal information provided is not legal advice. For that, please hire an attorney. All right, is it working?
It's working.
It's working! Oh my god! We got it!
Let me pop it out. I don't want people seeing my DMs.
All right,
Spicy.
cool.
Right. Okay, there we go.
We got it. All right, fuck it. We are live, goddammit. All right, fucking make it happen. All right, so listen. Next we are All right, so tag team coverage. Me, Chud Logic, covering. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. Video from Ben Shapiro, an honest conversation on gender with Dr. Debrah Soh. So I actually have not looked at this video. yet. Like, I admit, like, the last video I looked at before we took a look at it. This one, I'm just going in and I'm just seeing how good my research document does against the things that they say.
Okay, cool. You can do that side of it. I'll do the memes.
All right.
I think it's worth saying, like, one thing with Blair White, for all of Blair White's faults, obviously I'm not a fan of Blair White, at least she can speak about the so-called trans perspective. Like, she's a trans person, right? So she knows at least that much. But then you've got like, sorry, someone just did a sub. Thank you for the sub, Stranger Things, very much appreciate it. But like with Ben Shapiro, he's like a cis dude, right? Like, he's got no fucking clue about any of it, you know? So he doesn't even have like a lived experience to talk about, which makes it even more egregious, in my opinion.
I mean, he's got absolutely nothing. I mean, like, we're gonna like talk about some other people, right? Like, it's crazy how much like various cis people will care about like trans issues. And I mean, like, you know, there are a lot of people on the left who care about trans issues as well, but usually they're arguing against other people who are cis who are arguing against trans issues. And I would say that arguing against it requires a lot more investment personally than to just like, you know, try and defend people's basic civil rights and civil liberties, right? It is pretty cringe, right? But he's talking to it's massively cringe. So all right, we're gonna go ahead and start, and let's see what memes we got.
Joining us on the line is Dr. Debrah Soh. She's a sex neuroscientist, columnist, and political commentator. She has a brand new book out titled "The End of Gender."
That's an interesting title. The End of
I
Gender.
mean, that would speak to like gender abolition, right? And I'm fairly certain Ben Shapiro's not going to have a gender abolition.
Oh shit! Actually, gender abolition is coming in and challenging Ben Shapiro. No, of course it's not going to be, right? Like, it's just clickbait. It's effectively like a clickbait title.
So can I just ask something, please? Because I'm not. Are you familiar with like gender abolition at all?
A little. I've heard about it described by Vosh, but I wouldn't be. I'm not like as big of an authority.
Sure, no, that's fine. I just was interested. I don't really. Or whatever works best. That's my take on that sort of thing. Whatever's best for everyone. Okay.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's basically like, it's an effort to work towards like a genderless society. I'm not sure how I feel about it without knowing more specifics about like the kind of ideas that it would propagate. But you know, like right now, I don't know. Like I'm just kind of doing my thing, and I figure let other people do their thing, and that's really all that. Like, whatever labels you want to use to get there, then that's really that's my argument. Damn right. All right, let's keep going.
Debunking the myths about sex and identity in our society. It says very unsayable things in our modern moment. Dr. Soh, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Hi, Ben. Thank you for having me.
So why don't we start with what drove you to write this book in the first place? Obviously, one of the most contentious areas of American public life,
speed up a little.
Apparently international public life, is around the science surrounding gender. It has become basically unsayable to even suggest that men and women exist as biological entities and are also different in a variety of ways, ranging from brain function to the biology of actual sex organs. So what drove you to write them?
Ben just coming in straight with the science denialism. Holy fuck. Holy shit. All right, hold on. So people who are watching, all right, we already went over it in the previous video. I'm just going to reference you to these specific areas in my document about it. First, right, the idea that, like, you know, there are biological men and biological women, and that those things strictly determine what someone's gender is. Both of those ideas are fundamentally false, all right? Biological sex does not determine someone's gender. That is based on this scientific consensus, which I am presenting to you right now. And also the idea that people are like strictly placed into categories of biological male and biological female is also to an extent scientific fiction, because we exist on a bimodal distribution. We exist on a spectrum. And so when people try to arbitrarily decide at what points people become biologically male or biologically female, like, that is an arbitrary decision. That is decided by society. This is the modern scientific consensus, and everything that Ben just said is blatantly wrong. So like, I just want to say, like what he is basically saying is, I'm so upset that people are criticizing people who just want to like spread misinformation and talk about like trans people in such like a misinformed and unscientific way. I'm so sad that people get mad when you say that, even when I'm clearly just trying to discriminate against trans people. Like it's just like the most vinely failed attempt to play a victim complex, and it makes me
And also, I mean, I don't want to wear this mean to death. I'll probably hopefully in the time I say it, he's you know, but at the same time, he doesn't want to say the word pussy because that's too offensive, apparently.
He doesn't want to say the word what?
He doesn't want to say the word pussy.
Oh, fuck, yeah. I know, right? I know. No, it's actually amazing because, like, he won't like, it's, I mean, like, it's fundamentally, like, respectability politics, but respectability politics to such an extent that, like, you can see what he's like in his personal... Actually, no, I don't want to say too much about his personal life. I'm sure that his wife is... I'm sure they're in a marriage, and it exists, and it is a marriage. That much I can say with certainty.
Look, okay, I'll say it. Okay, I'm fairly certain that Ben Shapiro is probably into cuckoldry, which is fine. Okay, which is totally fine. Because obviously, and his wife's very into it, because I've no doubt in my mind that Ben Shapiro's got no hope of pleasing his wife. Like, there's no two ways about it.
I wasn't gonna say, actually, I did not have that take, but interesting take. I think that we should just leave. I think you know what we should do. We should just leave it to the audience. We should just leave it to the audience to decide what to take, to decide what to believe there. You know, is Ben Shapiro does Ben Shapiro get really into cuckoldry? Well, I don't know. We're just kind of speculating here. We're just
asking questions.
We're just asking questions. Oh my god, the thing that fucking reactionary. Yeah, we're just asking questions. Chud's case is infallible. All right. I'll let you all do with that what you want to. All right, let's go on.
Yes.
The biggest motivation for me was all of the questions that I've been receiving over the years, ever since I first started writing about this issue, and that there is so much confusion. And what's really disturbing is that the information that is being purported to be scientifically accurate, the information that's actually being supported by some scientific organizations, medical organizations, even government.
Hold on, some? I mean, like, the scientific consensus is supported by like every major scientific and social organization. Hold on. Actually, like, let me pull up research. Do I still have it? Dang it. There's a list from Zan and Vosh's ultimate research doc, right? I don't rely on that myself because I try to use my own document, but there's like the list, right, of all the scientific and social organizations which affirm the validity of trans people and that gender and sex are mutually exclusive ideas. And like among them is like the fucking United Nations, right? I feel like when you're trying to call the United Nations like an uncredible source for information, when it's literally like the aggregate of all of the scientific and social consensus that currently exists in the fucking world, I feel like that's a bit of a stretch, right? I feel like that's a little bit of a stretch, personally. Just me. Just me.
Absolutely. I agree. And, you know, the thing I always think about with this is their denial of the science around this stuff is very similar to the way that they deny the science around climate change, right?
Oh shit! Interesting.
And it's basically the same principle, right? So when it comes to climate change, they'll point to some whack job doctor who, not doctor, but like you know, they'll point to like a geologist or something who isn't even specialized in climate, and they'll be like, look what he's saying about it, right? And it's the same principle here. They'll find whatever doctor they can, right? They'll find like, I don't know, a doctor of something related to pediatrician stuff, and they'll point to them and be like, look at this. Do you know what I mean? That's
it's amazing because are you familiar with the college? I think it's the College of Pediatricians. The American College of Pediatricians, right? Literally, like, that's essentially what they try to do, right? Like, there are people who are a part of it who are medical professionals, heavy quotations, people with medical degrees, right? But like, it's very important to recognize that, like, they are a college in the same way that PragerU is a university. They have been branded, like, they have been branded as
these people.
Yeah, I know, right? They've been branded as a hate organization by, like, the Southern Poverty Law Law Center, and like they literally take every single conservative, like anti-science and anti like reactionary kind of perspective on sexuality and gender you can possibly fucking take. But that's what they do. They're just like, hey, here's a doctor. They have a medical degree. We must be right, and that's like the totality of their argument every single fucking time, every time.
One question I want to ask you, because I'm not sure about this. So obviously, like with climate denialism, it seems fairly obvious that it's to prop up and support, fossil fuel companies, etc. Right? What's the agenda when it comes to trans issues and trans people? Do you think?
Wait, hold on. The agenda, like the trans agenda, or like the conservative agenda?
Yeah, no, I mean, like the conservative agenda. Like, why are they so keen to deny it? Is it just because they're reactionary and they don't want to?
Well, hold on. I can answer this pretty soundly, or I can make an educated guess, right? Like, some of this requires me to speculate, but like, there's some literature on this. Actually, I have some of it like right behind me. So essentially, when we are talking about something as radical. Right, radical just being like meaning a drastic departure from a previous way of understanding and living life. Something as radical as the idea of trans people, right? The idea that you could be born as one thing and then later be another. At least from other people looking at you, right? Like other people would look at me and they would say, oh, I was born as a boy and now I'm a woman, right? Like that idea kind of shakes a lot of especially more conservative worldviews like to their core, because a lot of very conservative worldviews and ideologies basically rely, especially if there's like a heavy religious connotation to them, they very heavily rely on the idea that what you were born as is what you are. And like, especially if there's a religious connotation, it's what you were born as is what you are because you were created by God, damn it. And God can't fucking make any mistakes, even though like there are people with disabilities, even though there are some people who are born with conditions that require surgeries. Like the logic falls apart, like if you put it under like the barest bit of scrutiny, but that's essentially where they're thinking from, right? And so like it can be very scary to acknowledge the idea that like that trans people are valid as who they say they are. And so like by trying to and the most important idea, this actually comes from a book, I'll just reference it here, right? The Righteous Mind, Why Good People Are Divided by Religion and Politics by Jonathan Haidt. There's a different Jonathan Haidt that a lot of people criticize. This is the better one. And so there's this idea, right, that when you criticize a worldview or an ideology, most of the time, what people don't perceive that as a rational, like good faith criticism of an idea. Most people will take that to be a personal attack on themselves because someone's ideology in the most barest sense is like one's view of the ideal world, and that's where the word comes from, right? And so when you're criticizing their ideology, you are literally criticizing someone's view of the ideal world, someone's preference for the ideal world. And that is often perceived not as valid criticism or constructive, but as a personal affront. Which is why you get people who are so up in arms about trans and LGBT people. And this happens like all the time, right? Like you can trace this back through history and look at like any like minority or civil rights issue and you see like the basic same kind of thing, right? Like with black people, the idea that black people were the same as white people. I mean, fuck, this is still being debated today. I don't know how, but it fucking is. Why?
Well,
sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, because I've just thought of this just now, but like there is definitely a transphobia industrial complex amongst conservative media, right?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Every representation of trans issues and trans people is presented negatively, you know, and it gets clicks and so on and so on and so on. So really, this is deeply rooted in religious bigotry. Then, I guess, is the best way to put it.
I think that would be a strong guess, right? Again, we cannot say that with certainty because, well, actually, hold on. I will say, I've referenced this a couple times, right? So at the Lavender Law, the LGBT conference I just talked about, apparently what a lot of organizations are doing is, even though they have a lot of religious beliefs which fundamentally underlie the things that they say, especially in regards to trans issues, what they are doing is they specifically tell their constituents to, when they go out and advocate against trans inclusive policies, to focus less on religious ones and focus more on secular ones that are being posed more by like turfy kinds of organizations, right? Like TERFs, for as terrible as their ideas are, don't usually rely on religious kinds of arguments. They rely on more secular based arguments, right? Now it's logically inconsistent and unsound, but secular all the same. And so what these organizations tell their constituents is to try and adopt those kinds of arguments, because nowadays in modern America, like the average person, for, as heavily prevalent as religion is, the average person will not be solely convinced based on an appeal to religion. And so they specifically tell people, hey, we understand that, you fundamentally are coming at this from a religious perspective. Don't make those arguments, because if you do, people will not believe you as much as making secular ones. So like, there is a good case actually to make that like people do fundamentally approach this from a religious perspective. They just won't say it as much.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, we really are breaking down and destroying transphobia right now.
We really are.
Is great.
Yeah, no, we're actually fucking doing it. We're not clickbaity for fucking shit. We're actually fucking doing it. All right, we've tangented enough. Let's go on.
Okay.
Governmental policies are not actually fact-based. They're not actually based in reality, or as you mentioned, biology, because for whatever reason, biology is seen as hateful nowadays. So
this
wrong.
Is all, yeah, this is just wrong. Again, I direct people.
Man.
Yeah, I direct people. Like, I don't want to go through this all. Actually, no, hold on. Like the biology argument. All right, we'll go through it. I'm not going to read everything specifically, but I'm going to abridge it for people. Again, it's literally here, so you can go check it. I have links to all the citations, so you can literally go check it if you want to. Essentially, the consensus is that like gender identity is something which exists distinctively from biological sex. It is something which is more representative of someone's internal sense of being male, female, or something else. It is something which is represented to society based on the way that they interact with society. And it is something which, for the most part, might overlap with one's like biological identity, but there are instances where that's not the case, and that's when you get trans people. Hooray, wonderful, and intersex people for that matter. So that's that argument basically in a nutshell. And secondly, like the argument that like, because like again, it's important to acknowledge we exist not in a binary system of biological sex, but rather on a bimodal distribution. We exist on a spectrum, right? And so because we exist on a spectrum of aggregated sexual characteristics, right? Because we exist on a spectrum, if you try to impose binary categories on there, it doesn't work, right? Because when you try, because like the idea of trying to impose like essentially what you'd be doing, right? If you're looking at like right now, you aren't able to see it, I don't think, but I'm looking at like the graphic from Scientific American, right? If we exist on a spectrum, then like trying to decide where exactly on the spectrum someone becomes female or becomes male, it becomes arbitrary, right? There's not something on the spectrum that says that, oh, once you pass, like you must be this tall to be female, or you must be this short to be male, or whatever, right? Like it's arbitrary. It's decided by society, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And so like, and then there's also a lot of scientific consensus. One great quote is that the view that the world's population can be separated into a clearly defined dyadic unit, a male and female, is defunct. Not only clinical observations, but molecular biology has established that sexual identity is on a continuum with enormous potential for variance, right? So all right, let's be clear. She is literally like, we are a minute and 12 seconds in, and the only people who are anti-science in this discussion are her and Ben Shapiro. So very
her
interesting.
brain has literally just been pumped full of dog shit, basically.
I know, that's what it is. And Ben, you're it bothers me so much because if she is a fucking doctor and Ben is a fucking Harvard Law School graduate, this is so goddamn frustrating because they're literally just spreading like blatantly false information and expecting people to take it as a given. It's God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We're gonna go through. We're gonna be constructive. We're gonna be calm and collected, and we're not gonna freak out when they just blatantly say things that are blatantly wrong. All right, cool.
No problem.
Felt it was really important to offer a resource for people, especially for parents, because I would have a lot of parents reaching out to me saying that this is in their kids' education. And when I would try to find resources for them, I would see that a lot of what's available in the last, I would say 5, even 10 years is ideologically motivated. And so I think it's really dangerous, especially to be teaching this to children who don't know any better.
So let's.
No evidence, no citation. And also, can I just say that she's doing effectively the same thing that, Lisa Littman, right? Are you familiar with Lisa Littman at all? Or any of that? Yeah. She's basically just doing the same thing as Lisa Littman, right? Where it's not that she's actually like appealing to an observable, measured and like system and like and then reported on researched issue, right? What she is focusing on are quote unquote concerns from parents, which of course is the greatest way to evaluate whether or not there's actually a fucking problem with how we treat trans youth, right? Like she's just doing the fucking Lisa Littman thing, which has been widely criticized by everyone in the research and in the scientific community as just being a load of horse shit. I'm sorry to say it like that. But that's what it is.
Yeah, definitely. And these parents are like, they're confused, right? They don't know anything. Like they want to be educated. And unfortunately, some will end up with this book and go down the wrong path, right?
Mhm.
Like,
essentially, like, that's the sad part about it. All right, I am getting heated, but like, that is essentially the worry, right? Is that like there are some of these parents who would look out, like, actually, like, maybe they do want to learn more, maybe they do, and then they receive the kind of advice from people like this, and hey, let's listen a bit more to see what, you know, what you would recommend.
Let's talk about some of the most controversial.
Oh, so I was going to say, and then they'll watch more Ben Shapiro content, for example. Maybe,
oh my fucking god, yeah.
And they'll be, you know, and then they'll look at web articles about trans people that are totally wrong, you know, and it just pushes them further and further down this path of transphobia. And yeah, like that's it, isn't it? You know, and then their kid turns out to be a trans person, and they're treated terribly, and the cycle perpetuates, right?
Assertions by some of the, I would say, pseudo-biologists who are out there. How about the assertion that men and women are essentially social constructs? Even biology is a social construct. This is the most extreme form of the argument, that there are men.
This is also, like, this is a straw man. I'm just going to clarify this because, like, Sargon of Akkad, for people who saw the video that I did on him, he made the same argument. It's a straw man to say, like, no one is saying that biological sex is a social construct, but rather that, like, biological sex is on a bimodal distribution. It's on a spectrum. It is real. It does exist. But when we try to put people, like, when we try to define categories that are binary onto that spectrum, that is societally constructed, right? Like, it is when we as a society look at someone who's on the spectrum and just arbitrarily decide based on whatever totality of, like, features or traits that they have on that spectrum, that they are a man or a woman, right? Like, the sex exists, but the categories that we impose on it are societally constructed, right? That's the argument. So this is just a straw man, right? That's what it is. It's just a straw man. Just to clarify that for a moment. And the whole thing about the mom and dad doesn't exist, I don't know what the fuck that is. I've never actually heard that argument. I've never even heard that straw man. So fuck, Ben, maybe you're talking about someone that I'm unfamiliar with, but it certainly sounds like straw man to me.
With uteruses and women with vaginas. CNN the other day headlined that individuals with a cervix should make sure that they are cervically screened for cervical cancer. I have no idea what an individual with a cervix is other than a woman. So,
an individual with a cervix is an individual with a cervix. Like, here, Ben just doesn't understand what trans men or non-binary people are. Like, Ben, you went to fucking Harvard! God damn it! This is not hard. If you are a man and you have a cervix and you're a trans man, right? Then yeah, like, you're an individual with a cervix. Or if you're a non-binary person and you're, like, assigned female at birth and you have a cervix, then congratulations, you're an individual with a cervix. And that's not necessarily a woman. This is really simple. I'm sorry, like, Chud, maybe I can appeal to you as a reasonable person. Does this sound complicated in any way? Please let me know if this sounds complicated in any way. I really, like, maybe it's a stretch. Maybe I'm assuming a lot here. I feel like this is pretty fucking simple to understand.
Sorry, I had some connection issues there. I'm just restarting my stream. Sorry about that.
You're all good. You're all good. Let me ask you, all right, so very simple question. Is it hard to understand that an individual, like, why people might say, that individuals with cervixes should get checked for cervix cancer as opposed to, like, women? Like, does it seem like a pretty easy, to understand why someone might say that?
It is straightforward. And the other thing as well that frustrates me with this is they'll go, oh, well, the thing is, if you're a trans person, you might not go and get checked out for this condition or that condition because you think you're a woman or whatever. And it's like, but then they get in the next breath, they'll argue against the idea of using these terms so that people are more aware of, like, they need to get these things checked out because obviously, you know, the inside bits and pieces don't change, right?
Oh, yeah. No. And that's exactly right. So it's just amazing to me because Ben Shapiro just was like, yeah, I don't know what an individual with a cervix is. I only know that to be a woman. And it's just like, Ben, this is not hard. It's literally just to include trans men and non-binary people. It's all that it is.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and using that language will help people make sure they get the healthcare that they actually need, you know, if things happen, right? Like, I don't know. Yeah,
no, I think it's very simple. All right, I just wanted to address that. Let's move on.
Do biological men and women exist? And does the existence of intersex people invalidate the notion that there are, in fact, two separate sexes?
Oh, God, I see where this is going.
So it started off with gender as a social construct, which is not true, and then it's expanded to gender.
Wrong. Oh my
Oh
god.
my
This is.
god.
This is. Oh
What's
my god.
that based on? What's she basing that on?
She's all right. If she doesn't cite one goddamn piece of authority, then I'm just gonna like it. Oh my god. She's just gonna make an appeal to authority the entirety of the time. She's gonna have Dr. Debrah Soh, emphasis on the doctor. She might talk about like her doctorate, and if she doesn't cite one goddamn piece of authority, I'm just gonna call out that she's just basically counting on people to believe her because she has a doctorate. That's the entirety of the argument. I swear if that's the entirety of the goddamn argument, I'm gonna lose my shit.
There's a spectrum, and now it's expanded also to biological sex being both a spectrum and socially constructed, which is absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, yes, but actually no. Again, pursuant to like we won't rehash the argument because I don't want this video to be like an hour long, but we've already talked about it. We've already talked about the scientific consensus for it. And I mean, like, yeah, the science is what it is, you know, and you can be mad about it if you disagree with it, but it is what it is.
Of course, there are differences between men and women, and in terms of people for whom biology determines their gender, 99% of us, our biological sex will predict how we feel about our gender. So
99%.
That seems awfully high.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. And, like, I acknowledge, like, for the vast majority of people, like, what you are assigned at birth will probably correlate to what you live out the rest of your life. The problem is when we live in a world where there are hundreds upon millions of people, small ass percentages, even if it's like 1%, like even if we straw man and assume it's 1%, and I assume that's a bit higher for like the percentage of the existence of trans people, that's a fucking lot of people. That's a lot.
Sure.
That is a lot of goddamn people. So just like so a lot of conservatives will just be like, oh yeah, it's just like 1% or just 2% or 5%, and they'll just kind of like gesture at it like as if it doesn't matter. When we're talking about like things like the entirety of the human population in the world, that's a pretty fucking big deal. Just saying. That's my 2 cents on that. That's all I really wanted to say about it.
So this does not invalidate intersex people. This does not invalidate transgender people. Intersex people, for the most part, do want to live within the gender and biological sex binary. Most of them do actually want to live as one gender or one sex or the other. And for trans people, obviously...
Wait. Hold on. Dude, did she just like vaguely... She doesn't have any authority on whether gender is a social construct or not because she's not a social scientist? Oh, shit. If someone can get me... Hold on, someone get me her credentials. If someone can link me her credentials, we'll go over them on stream, all right? Give me the information, damn it. Bring me pictures of Spider-Man.
So again, it's just like we were talking about, you know, just like climate denialism, they'll get someone on that isn't an expert on to talk expertly about it, to give the oh look, but that doctor said it, so it must be true.
Oh yeah, no, I totally get that. Like people do this all the time, just like vaguely gesture at like the name that some or like the title of doctor and imply that that's the totality of the evidence that they need to present in order to be convincing to you. And yeah, that's a big steamy pile of shit. Actually, you know what? Just to make sure that people are clear. Oh, awesome! Someone, thank you. I'm gonna take that. But just so that we're clear, like in the court of law, for example, all right. Before we start looking at this, like in the court of law, for example, like there are rules about establishing someone as quote unquote an expert witness, at least in America. And when you do, mind you, that does not automatically believe that people can believe whatever you say. What it means is that people should afford more weight to what you say. All right. And there's a difference between blanketly believing everything that someone says and affording more weight to them. This is kind of similar to like trans people, right? Where it's like for example, like Blair, actually, great example, we just talked about her, will all the time try to use her being trans as an excuse or a justification for her beliefs or her views on trans people. And this is very similar in that while that is something which can be considered for the weight of what she says, it makes her more likely to be believed than the average person who isn't trans. It is not in and of itself conclusive. And we know that because we just went over an entire video of hers where she said so many things that were fucking wrong. It made me lose my mind.
Yeah.
And like doctors can go through the same thing too. Now, if someone has a doctorate or certain backgrounds, it can make you that is something to ascribe weight to them as you see fit, as like a finder of fact or a reviewer or whatever, right? Like you can choose to believe them more, but it should not be singularly the thing that establishes that they are an authority on the subject matter and that they should be blanketly believed on everything that they say, right? She's a doctor of philosophy. What? Hold on, is a neuroscientist who specializes in gender science. All right, hold on. This is literally her website. All right, hold on. Prior to writing The End of Gender. All right, as a journalist. All right, so she self-identifies as a journalist. has been interviewed. All right, where's her credentials? I want to see her JD. Or not her JD, I want to see her PhD. As an academic, research on hypersexuality was funded by the Canadian government through natural endeavor. Where is her goddamn... All right, where... It doesn't list what her qualifications are. Where her goddamn qualifications? I'm dyslexic. Psychology. Studying hypersexuality. Yeah, so let's be clear. Based on like what she has said in the first 5 minutes of this, and based on her studying of hypersexuality, like this is not like the most credible person to be trusted. Yeah, she might have a PhD, even though she doesn't list where she got any of her like background education, or she doesn't decide to list any of where that comes from. When you see someone who just like blatantly goes against the larger scientific consensus, you should not believe them, even if there's like something before the beginning of their name. All right, that's it. Let's go on.
Good stuff.
I try. Thank you.
It just so happens that their gender is the opposite of their biological sex. But this is not to say that it's any of this is socially constructed.
So let's talk about
RGR. So holds a Doctor of Philosophy degree in psychology from York University in Toronto. Okay, so she's a doctor in philosophy. Wonderful. Yeah, great. Best person to be able to talk about this. Wonderful. 10 out of 10.
The phrase that gender is a social construct. So that's been a very vaguely defined phrase. Generally speaking, there's this attempt to separate sex from gender, biological sex from gender being presumably the set of attributes that we typically assume to be more female or more male, that essentially you're talking about masculinity or femininity. So
I mean, Ben, like the larger scientific consensus is that they are different. I mean, you can disagree with that if you want to, but like then you're a science denier. I don't know how else to say it, right? Oh God, what did someone say? What there's a really famous. It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember who said it. It's something like facts don't care about your feelings or something like that. God, I cannot. I cannot remember who said it. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's on the tip of my tongue, but. I don't know. It'll come to me eventually. I don't know. Ben, maybe you have an opinion on that. Maybe you have an opinion.
So first of all, let's define gender, and then let's discuss what in gender is in fact a social construct and what is not. Because the idea that masculinity and femininity are completely separable from biological sex is not supported by the science.
You're just wrong, but okay.
Right, so gender identity.
You just literally saying wrong things. Like,
yeah, I know.
This is just wild to me.
I know. But people listen. But this is the thing about it, right? Is that people will ascribe them an intrinsic quality of being correct or being like intelligent or whatever. Like this happens online too, right? Like you look at people who are like classical liberals, right? And this happens all the time with them. They'll very rarely make like actual arguments, but will just like vaguely gesture at like this aesthetic of being correct and expect the audience to believe them when they say blatantly wrong shit all the fucking time. And it means that like it's also hard. I mean, like it's satisfying because then people like us can go through and debunk all of it. But like it's also hard because like that means like they can just like machine gun fire off all the fucking bad shit that they say routinely. Oh, hold on. Hold on, she was fucking mentored by Ray Blanchard. Are you goddamn serious?
Oh my God, no way.
I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm gonna lose my fucking mind. These people crawl out of the woodwork like fucking cockroaches. Oh my God. I'm sorry.
Don't worry, it's okay.
I'm sorry.
I understand your frustration and your anger. You obviously have got great interest in facts and logic, right?
I do.
Hey, as we thought Ben Shapiro did, but clearly not, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, like, it's interesting seeing this come out. I mean, like, all right, so for people who are not aware, Ray Blanchard was one of the proponents of, what was the idea? Well, he wrote the man who would be, what was the title of the book? It was something really inflammatory. The Man Who Would Be Queen. And it was basically the entire, like his whole bit was autogynephilia, right? The idea that like actually trans women aren't really women. And the reason they transition isn't to, express their gender identity. It's because they are sexually attracted to the idea of being a woman.
Oh, autogynephilia. Have I said that right? Is that it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And no, the fact that she was like educated or she was mentored by Ray Blanchard is not exactly surprising. It's not exactly surprising. But that should tell you a lot about what kind of credibility to ascribe to her. I will let you as the audience decide what to do with that information. Right? I'm just here. I'm just conveying the information. But thank you, Emma, for relaying that. All right, let's go on.
How we feel with relation to our biological sex, so whether we feel masculine or feminine, and then their gender expression is an extension of that, which is how we express our gender identity. So again, most people are gender typical. So if you're male, you're going to be masculine, and if you're female, you're going to be feminine. The second part of your question was referring to
I think that's actually largely. I mean, like if you identify as a guy, then normally you'll express your gender in a way that signifies to society that you're a guy. If you're a woman, you'll normally. Or sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, is that not itself socially constructed? You know,
oh no,
like
it's 100% social. It's 100% socially constructed.
Like if I wore nail varnish, you know, like to my friends, 'cause I'm quite a masculine guy. If I just started wearing nail varnish because I felt like it, they'd probably take the piss out of me. Do you know what I mean? Like all these kind of friends.
Yeah. I hear you. Great friends. Wonderful. 10 out of 10. And I'm not saying. I'm actually not saying that like ironically. Like I have friends from back home, who just like shit around or like fuck around. It's all good. It's all good. But yeah, I mean, like the way that because like the reason that gender is societally constructed, like the argument essentially is that like when you do certain things, which have a gendered nature to them, at least based on what society expects of a certain gender, if you do enough of them together in their aggregate, at least depending on what society expects from you, then society will begin regarding you as that gender. For example, if you start like growing out your hair and you start like prettying up your face, or you start talking with a certain kind of voice. And again, like all of this is dependent on like where you are in what society you're at and where society is at a given point in time, because like these kinds of requirements or definitions change as societies, develop different expectations for gender. But like, if you do like things X, Y, and Z, or like generally, like, if you do enough from a list of factors that generally society expects from women, then congratulations. Eventually society will start acknowledging you as a woman.
Well, here's an interesting point. Someone in my chat brought this up. I mean, the Scots wear skirts. So yeah, and this is what's funny about it. In Scotland, I don't know if you know this, but do you know?
Oh, sorry, you cut out for a second.
Do you know what a kilt is?
Oh, fuck, yeah, totally.
Right. So dudes are up in Scotland wearing what are effectively skirts, right? Mm-hmm. And that goes against, but somehow they managed to twist it so that it's somehow a masculine thing, societally in Scotland that's considered masculine to wear a kilt, even though it's effectively a skirt, right? Mm-hmm. Just to go off on a small tangent, I remember once when I was a kid, like basically, I think one element of it is the myth is that Scottish people don't wear anything under the kilt, so they go commando, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I vividly remember, I didn't see anything. I was a kid. It's not like that. But a family member was speaking to another person wearing a kilt that came over from America, and they bought into this big time, right? Mm-hmm. And basically, this family member said, "Oh, so are you wearing anything under there?" He went, "Nope," and just lifted his kilt up and just showed this person the dick.
Oh, fuck.
At a fucking wedding, right?
Wow.
Like, just here's my dick. Look at my dick. So I think it's almost like there's a bit of insecurity about the fact you're effectively wearing a skirt. And fellas get over it by showing each other their dicks. Okay, that's my take.
Interesting.
Hello?
Yeah,
no, sorry.
I'm just processing. That for a second. But yeah, and another great example is like historically over at various points in Europe, right? Like if you go back a couple hundred years, it used to be very common for men to wear like pink high heels, big frilly wigs, like dresses, right? Back then that was considered masculine, right? That was considered representative of what it meant to be a man and be the manliest of man, for that matter. And that's not true nowadays. And that's because the definition of what it has meant to be a man has changed over time. Congratulations. That's societally constructed gender 101. Women in suits are hot. You're goddamn right they are. Of course, I might be biased a little bit. But anyway, let's keep going.
Which aspects are socially constructed and which are biological? So again, it all comes down to biology and exposure to testosterone in the womb. So higher levels of exposure to testosterone are associated with more male typical interests and male gender expression. So this is
more typical,
regardless of what someone's biological sex is. So this goes the same for females who may be gender atypical, who are more masculine, again, are more likely on average to be exposed to.
More likely on average, almost as if you get variance, almost as if you get a spectrum. Amazing. I'm sorry, I just had to point out, I just had to point that out.
Higher levels of testosterone in utero.
So when it comes to transgenderism, which apparently has become the real hot button here,
transgenders. I'm sorry, they just say like all the fucking little buzzwords. They say all the fucking little buzzwords. I have to stop like every fucking 2 seconds with these people. Listen, we're gonna get through this. I want to try and go a little bit quicker. I'm for as much as Ben Shapiro, for as fast as he talks, I want to pick up the.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we got it. We fucking got it. Let's get this. Let's do it.
If you say that men exist and women exist and a man cannot become a woman, nor can a woman become a man biologically, this is unsayable. If you say this sort of thing, then you put yourself in danger of being actually banned from Twitter. So can, in fact, a man become a woman or a woman become a man, biologically speaking? Or are we just talking about people who are suffering, when we talk about transgender people who are suffering from gender dysphoria, which is a legitimate mental condition?
There's so much fucking wrong here.
Yeah.
Do we have to...
like trans medicalism type rhetoric, you know?
It's like trans medicalism, but they're also so now they're trying to make the argument that, like, okay, so can people who are biologically male become biologically female and vice versa? This does not map onto like what the scientific consensus is for gender and like sexual identity. As we've already talked about earlier, it's just like the basic framework of it is logically inconsistent with the scientific consensus. And so like the way that they're phrasing it just fucking makes my head hurt, because like the logic, even like the underlying logic of it, like it's a straw man, right? It assumes that people are making this argument, and then it's all the logic of it is also relying on things that just aren't true, right? Like the underlying understanding that he is trying to present itself is inconsistent with scientific consensus. So it's just like so, oh my God, so frustrating on multiple levels. Ben, what are you doing here? Not caring about facts. It's almost as if your feelings override them. What's happening here? I thought you were the fact boy. What's happening?
Me personally, I have no issue referring to trans people using the pronouns they want. I will, if a trans woman would like me to consider her to be female, I will. But that is...
Hold on. Can we talk about the people who say, personally, I have no problem referring to the people who identify as trans as their chosen pronouns. I personally don't have a problem. Like how a lot of people who are transphobic will usually say this in like sort of like a right libertarian sort of a way, where it's like, I'm not going to tell trans people to not do it. But like when you actually ask them if trans women are women or trans men are men, they won't actually answer the question, because they just try to avoid it by using like this vague gesturing language at like supposed acceptance, when in fact they're just trying to mask the fact that they aren't answering the basic question. Like this in and of itself tells me a lot more about what she believes than anything else that she has said so far.
Yeah, it's kind of strange to me that you would say that. Like, it's just a basic point of courtesy that you wouldn't need to make that point, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not exactly equivalent, right? It's slightly different. But it's almost like coming out and saying, well, look, I appreciate that people don't want to be called the N-word, so I won't call them the N-word. But the facts are clear. Like, they do X, Y, and Z bad things. Like, it's kind of similar to that kind of logic, right? Like,
I see the similarity. It's like, listen, I'm going to respect them, I'm going to respect them and not call them the N-word, but I'm still going to like say and do all the racist shit, right?
I'll do the 13. I'm not going to call them the N-word, but it's undeniable that they do commit more crime, right? Like, that's the kind of thing that they would do.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that there's a similarity here. There's definitely a similarity. But yeah, so that's why I don't trust what she says before, beyond how far you can throw it.
Within the caveat of there are differences between someone who is born female and someone who is a transgender woman, and similarly for trans men and men who are born male. But the thing is, as you say, we can't even talk about these differences, and I think that's really harmful to society, because one, for trans rights, and I am in favor of transgender rights, I think for these communities, if they
these fucking people, this is what they always goddamn do. Actually, I know that people label me as transphobic, but I'm in support of trans people. Can I just say that, like, all right, to address the merits of her argument right now, no one is denying that there's differences between trans and cis women. Yeah, those differences exist. But the problem is when people try to extend that argument in bad faith to then make an argument against trans inclusive policies, rules, and, otherwise discussion in society. Like the beginning of the discussion of there are differences between trans and cis women on its basis doesn't really it's like kind of neutral. It's like, whatever, yeah, sure, I agree on its merits. But like when you extend that, like normally people then extend that to, and that's the reason why we shouldn't let them in bathrooms, or and that's the reason we shouldn't let them in the changing rooms, or and that's the reason we should have laws XYZ, put against them, right? Like it's always like the extra step that they won't say. It's kind of like begging the question of like, why is this relevant? Well, this is usually like the understanding of what they're trying to do, right?
Yeah, and it's always a step that they make that will cause harm you can demonstrate to trans people, right? Like, it's always something really egregious and horrific. Like that's why we need to make sure we put trans women in like male prisons, right? Like something really horrific.
Oh yeah, no, that's another great example. But yeah, that's basically where this logic extends to, or at least the way that these kind of people will normally extend that logic.
Want to be taken seriously and to have their concerns heard, they can't be promoting narratives that are not based in fact and reality, because people are not going to take it seriously.
Ironic.
Yes.
That's all I'll say there. That's all I'll say. We've already said enough about like the scientific consensus of why they're wrong. It's just very ironic.
So in your book, you go through a series of myths. Among them, that gender is a social construct. So when you talk about gender identity or gender expression, so why isn't gender a social construct? Why isn't it completely separate from biology?
Well,
also, notice how he asked the question. Actually, this is something that I can notice a lot more because this is pretty common in the law. Like, he's asking a leading question, right? Which is something that is really commonly used in like cross-examinations in the court. Now, granted, I think that might be on debate. That might be like bordering on objectionable because it kind of sounds like he is, like he's sort of implying a truth in the question. So even that might be objectionable, but like the way that he phrased it. So tell me why gender is not a social construct, right? It already assumes that gender isn't a social construct and it asks her to justify that claim, right? So like even the phrasing of it is completely biased, right? If he wanted to ask it in an unbiased way, he'd be like, all right, well, can you tell us if gender is a social construct, and if it is or is not, can you explain why? That is an unbiased, open-ended way to ask a question that would be expected in this sort of a circumstance. But like the way that he's asking it, it's very clear he's trying to get a specific answer and he's trying to get the audience to understand a very specific thing from this.
This is Dave Rubin levels of interview style.
Basically.
You let someone come on and say whatever they want, and then you also ask some questions that are leading and biased towards that perspective, right? Like if Ben Shapiro was like an honest actor, even with his own beliefs, he would bring someone like this on and he would cross-examine them in an extremely kind of aggressive way, right? That's what journalists are supposed to do. You know, you're supposed to try and find the holes and point them out in the logic. But I feel like this is a big problem in America. These journalistic type personalities just don't do that. Whereas in the UK, there's this real culture of like a politician comes on or someone comes on and they get fucking hammered for like 20 minutes. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. No, I totally get it. Also, like journalists, very heavy quotations, right? Like, let's be clear. None of these people who claim to be journalists actually belong to any kind of journalistic organization. If they did, like, they would very easily be sanctioned by like whatever the larger journalistic organizations would, because like this is not journalism, right? Or it's not objective journalism, right? This is specifically trying to push a particular narrative. That's what it is. It's just important. It's just important to recognize like small little things like that, because not a lot of people might pick that up. But like the question is very specifically tailored to get a specific response and to get the audience thinking in a particular way. So it's good to call it out.
Basically all the research literature shows that it is biological. We can look at a couple of different areas. So one area in particular is girls with a genetic condition called congenital adrenal hyperplasia. So they are exposed to higher than usual.
Any citations? I mean, like, hey, if she wants to cite scientific authority, I'd love to see it.
Levels of testosterone in the womb, and when they are born, they gravitate toward male-typical toys and male-typical behavior, even when their parents give them more praise for playing with female-typical toys. So this speaks to the fact that biology really is a very strong influence, and the idea that gender is socialized by parents.
Influence. Again, like no one is meant like the argument is not that like that biology does not influence gender. Sure, in some ways it does, right? But to say that one directly always causes the other, that's wrong, right? Because the fact of the matter is, like, most people who are assigned like one gender or another at birth, in the way that, in the womb, they very well might, like, people are exposed to certain kinds of, certain levels of hormones, testosterone and estrogen, and that may have these kinds of influences early on in life. Well, we also know that sometimes, just like she said, that, there are sometimes people who are exposed to like something which is atypical, right? And those might have effects early on. But the thing is, like, when you run into those kinds of circumstances where people are exposed to like differing amounts than what is normal, whereas most people will grow up with like, a pretty general experience and will probably identify with the gender they were assigned at birth. That's not everyone, right? And it's when you have situations where it's not everyone that you start running into problems with having just a purely binary based on like this idea, based on their concept of what biological sex is, construction of what gender is, right? Like that's when you start running into these problems. But no, like no one's making the argument that one doesn't influence the other. It's just that like one does not always correlate to the other, right? There's not like 100% you are X, so you become Y, right? Like that's
this is very common. They'll invent this absurd straw man. Again, it's common strategy that people like Ben Shapiro and this doctor person use, where they have to invent an absurd position that the SJWs hold, and then that's presented without question to the audience from either side, and that's why you have all these anti-SJW type people that say these same things, right? It's basically propaganda,
I know, and it becomes hard for us because then we have to fucking go through and basically like unpropagandize all these people. Which,
Yeah,
hey,
cool.
like someone's got to do it, but we're doing the good work. We're doing the good work. We're actually unironically destroying transphobia. We're eradicating it. After tonight, transphobia doesn't exist anymore.
And caregivers and teachers and the media and society or whatever else is just not true.
So let's talk about some of the differences, putting aside the transgender issue, just between men and women more generally. So in your book, you talk about actual differences between men and women. What are the differences that we should, of course, we're speaking about on average, because there are people at the tail ends of sort of masculinity and femininity.
People at the tail ends. Almost as if we exist on a goddamn spectrum,
God.
These people.
That's
oh
so
my
annoying.
God.
He's just recognized the spectrum and
I know.
pointed it out.
I know. God damn it, Ben. Also, hey,
close.
Dario's in chat. What's up? How you doing? Welcome to the Discord. And oh my, this is so. I'm gonna lose my goddamn mind. I'm actually gonna lose my goddamn mind. We're gonna make it. We are more than halfway through the video. We're gonna get that. We're gonna get it.
Who may have some similar attributes, but when we're talking about the average man versus the average woman, what are the differences that we should take note of and that we should adjust for in sort of our social science analysis?
One area that I'm particularly concerned about is with how this plays out in dating and sex, especially for young people. They're receiving a lot of mixed messages from the media in terms of what to expect in their romantic relationships, how to go about dating. And especially for young women, I feel like they're being told a lot of nonsensical ideas, like they should behave like men in terms of their interaction.
This is turning into a turf argument. It's actually unironically turned. I didn't actually expect this. I guess I should have expected, but it's unironically turning into a turf argument. Oh my fucking God. Oh my fucking God. Yeah, so this is basically just turning into the idea that, and now, when young women are being told how to date, then, this might fuck with, apparently, like, these messages might fuck with their ability to date people, vaguely, somehow. Like, we're sending them, I guess, mixed messages. They're not going to specify. Well, actually, hold on. I paused in the middle of her talking. So to be fair, maybe she'll specify something. Maybe she'll specify a specific concern.
Good point.
Yeah. Maybe she will. Maybe. We'll see. Let's let her.
With men, that they should enjoy casual sex as much as men. And I think, whatever floats your boat, I'm totally cool with. But if you feel the pressure to behave in a way that is not comfortable for you or that you don't actually enjoy, I feel like young people are just so confused and there's so much misinformation. And I know.
Wait. So, because we are spreading the ideas that trans people are valid, this is implying that young women should go out and have more sex.
And I mean, yeah, what would you say to that? Like, there's a lot to go over there, right? Like, obviously, well, the first point is like, it doesn't matter how much sex women have, as long as obviously you're using a condom or whatever health measures are required to prevent STIs or whatever. But other than that, like, I'm just. So what? Even if women were going out and fucking everyone, like, what does it matter, right?
So the argument that she made is that, like, apparently people who are advocating for trans rights are pressuring women who may not want to into having more sex than normal, not providing any citation, not saying anything to support her goddamn position other than a vague worry. I'm gonna fucking lose my mind. I'm actually gonna lose my mind. This is a goddamn doctor! Oh my God. I don't know what else. I don't know what else really to say about this other than, like, people, if it sounds fucking crazy, it's because it is. There's no, like, this is just a complete straw man. This is complete speculation. This is just vaguely gesturing at a concern or at a worry that is just not validated. It doesn't, like, there's this is such, like, I've never actually heard this. I've never heard this straw man before. This is actually so new to me that it's shocking my conscience. It is shocking my conscience.
And I'll tell you what as well, that argument is fucking dynamite for a conservative audience because they're terrified of sex anyway.
Oh,
For example, Ben Shapiro doesn't want to say pussy, right? Like, call that back in.
Oh yeah. Hold on, I gotta read this. A doctor who was trained by a guy who believed most trans people were sexual perverts biologically and ended up influencing widespread conversion therapy. Yep. No, that's fair. That's good commentary. Thank you, Demon Mom. I appreciate it. This is, I'm about to lose my goddamn shit. But yeah, listen, people, the argument against that is that there's nothing to substantiate it. She's not citing any authority. And, like, if it sounds crazy, like, at some point, it just is. It just is.
Know that you often will give advice to your listeners, so I definitely think that fact-based information is the way to go, especially dating's difficult enough as is.
She's the one oh my fucking God. How fucking ironic is it that she's the one sitting here trying to tell me to advocate for fact-based information when she hasn't provided a single goddamn fact to support anything she has said the entire fucking time? Oh my god, these people. Oh my god, these people. I'm all right. I'm sorry. I realize I'm just being a pause and react, Andrea. I realize I am, but like every single word out of these people's goddamn mouths is just like blatantly wrong. Every single goddamn thing.
Listen, if it was me, I'd be pausing it more. All right, like that's how it goes with React.
Yeah.
React content.
yeah. I feel it. All right, we're gonna get through. We're gonna do it.
So let's talk for a second about some of the myths that have been put out there in the social sciences with regard to basically by ignoring differences between men and women. You can come up with these bizarre statistics suggesting that women are wildly discriminated against in American society. Here I'm thinking mostly about the wage gap and the suggestion that because men and women have pretty significantly.
What is this pivot?
This is strange. What has this got to do with anything?
We're just okay. We're pivoting to women's rights. And the wage gap and the glass ceiling. All right.
Basically, Ben Shapiro relishes the chance to shit on women. Okay, like that's what it is, and he's rubbing his hands together now.
There's so many amazing ideas for like the thumbnail or the title of this video. It's like you either got Ben Shapiro contributes to children's suicide or Ben Shapiro actually hates women. Actually hates people with wet ass P words. Actually, hold on. That might be pretty good. That might be the title.
Wet ass P words. Yeah, that's good.
He hates people with wet ass P words. Amazing.
Different preferences in terms of the kind of jobs they like and the number of hours they want to work. That this is just a reflection of society's bias against females. Do you talk in the book, the End of Gender, Debunking Myths About Sex and Identity in Our Society, about the differences between men and women in terms of some of the choices that they make about family and about career and how this actually impacts things like average income?
I do, to the extent of women on average preferring to have a work-life balance, and that the fact that we're not actually having this conversation in a very honest way, and that we're blaming any sort of discrepancy or difference we see in terms of the sex ratio on sexism, I think is actually hurting women because it's not helping them make.
Calling out sexism is actually sexist. Chud, how are you hanging in there? How are you doing? How are you doing?
I'm doing good because I've just figured something out. Okay, Debrah Soh got hold of her qualifications from PragerU.
Wait, what?
I'm fairly certain that Debrah Soh
studied with PragerU. That's where she got her doctorate.
Studied for a total of 30 minutes. That's 6 PragerU courses. Okay. And that's how she got her qualifications. Honestly,
based on the things that she said, I wouldn't like. I want to disbelieve that because I understand it's a meme, but like at this point, I actually cannot. I cannot, in good conscience, after hearing all the bullshit so far, reasonably rule out that possibility. I actually I cannot, in good faith, rule that out. Which is amazing, but in the worst way possible. And in just the most terrible way. Let's keep going because we only have a couple minutes left, and we have to finish. We have to finish
informed decisions that are actually going to help them live more meaningful and content lives. So one area that I do write and speak quite often about is the sex ratio in STEM and the fact that it is not a 50-50 ratio. However, it is not due to sexism. Again, it's due to occupational differences on averages, which again go back to on average exposure to prenatal testosterone in terms of what we find interesting. And I think it's really patronizing and infantilizing to say that women who choose to pursue different priorities in their life from men are somehow oppressed.
So Dr. Soh.
Wait, so this is all right. So it's a weird amalgamation of various arguments. It's an amalgamation of like the argument of like childhood hormone exposure in the womb, and also like the personal responsibility or like the personal choice argument for why women are in like less paying fields. This is a very weird sort of homunculus that's the amalgamation of these various ideas. I haven't heard this before, but just in short, right? Because this is actually something I don't have as much in my research document about. Actually, I was not prepared for this weird pivot into fantasy land that we have gone to. But essentially, like the idea that women are actually personally responsible for the reasons why they go into certain fields, or that like they are largely in those fields because they're influenced by some kind of biological aspect. Like most of the overwhelming current majority like social consensus or social science consensus is that like the thing that primarily drives women to go into fields that they do, especially in regards to like this specific aspect of them, like lower paying fields, is because they are influenced by society to want to go into those fields. More women think that they want to go into something like a nursing job as opposed to like going into a doctorate program because that's what is expected in society on average. Now, interesting thing about this like a really good piece of evidence to show this actually is have you ever watched the X-Files?
Yes.
So there's actually a really interesting effect where back when the X-Files was just starting to back when the X-Files was just starting to really come on television and really get popular, there was actually at the same time a lot of women who started going into fields like what was represented by Scully, the character in that show, and it was actually shown to be like it was labeled as like the Scully effect, right? Where because before that point there was not as much representation for women in say like investigative or like fields that are represented in that show. Now that you had like a really important, a really widely renowned character, giving that role, that was the thing that started getting a lot of women more involved in it, because now, congratulations, you have more representation. And that's the thing that kept a lot of women from feeling like they wanted to go into those kinds of fields, right? So like this argument that she's making, like it's such a weird... It's such a weird amalgamation, but it's just wrong on multiple fronts, right? And that's probably like the best argument to make to the front of it. But like the straw man that like she's not providing a citation to like a study to show this, so I'm not going to trust her beyond like what she's worth, because like she's been blatantly wrong multiple times. Her credibility as like an expert has been like sufficiently impugned. But like beyond that, right? Like it just sounds fucking crazy. The idea that that it is somehow insulting that women are influenced to go into less paying fields by virtue of the fact of the hormones that they are exposed in the womb. Like it's wrong. Like it's so out there and so crazy on like multiple levels. But also by virtue of the fact that like most women are like primarily choose the fields that they go to based on the society that they live in and the expectations that society sets. Right. Cool. But yeah, that's a weird combination of arguments. I have not heard that one before.
You obviously are not somebody who would consider herself, I think, on the conservative side of the political aisle. I mean, you used to write for Playboy. You're not somebody who would fall comfortably into like the center of the Republican.
Can I say that they always fucking do this? It's like, oh, you're not actually a conservative, right? You're not actually a conservative. And then the person is like, oh, of course, I don't identify with the label of conservative. And then they were influenced. They were like, one of their primary mentors, as they were going through their education was fucking Ray Blanchard. Yeah, of course totally. 100%. I totally trust and believe that you're not actually a conservative. Yeah, 100%. I totally trust. Can I say this is like basically the same way that I regard people who identify as like classical liberals, right? People.
It's the same meme.
Yeah, it's literally the same meme, right? I'm not the bad thing that people call bad people, because as long as I don't self-identify with that label, then you can't possibly label me that, even though my beliefs and my actions might speak directly to the contrary of that, right? That's effectively that meme.
Yeah, and when you say, well, no, you are clearly like a conservative, like look at all these things you believe, they'll be like, wow, that's because the irrational left once again,
my fucking God,
have reframed leftism to be anything right of Stalin isn't left anymore, like that fucking shit. So.
Oh yeah, no, totally. Okay, yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that.
Republican Party, and yet you've sort of been treated that way by a huge swath of the media, certainly the Twitterati, people for saying some of these basic truths. You've been treated as sort of a
Also, hold on, two things. First, basic truths, heavy quotations. And secondly, wow, amazing. So she's been called very conservative by a lot of like big, larger news networks. Gee, I wonder why. I wonder why. I have no idea. I have no goddamn idea why they would possibly do that. It just makes no sense to me. Like, why would they do that? Why would they do that? Person who's now talking about what she believes to Ben Shapiro. Why would anyone possibly label you as conservative? That's just so weird. Don't you think that's weird? That's so weird. It's fucking people.
Social outcast in many ways. Can you talk a little bit about the reaction and why it is that the radical left seems to have taken so much control in areas of science?
Yeah, I have to say thank you so much, Ben, for all of your...
The radical left is taking control of science. I've said it before. I will say it again. And I will die on this hill. Facts have a left-leaning bias. Fight me on it, motherfucker.
Yes.
I will. Yeah. That's all I'm going to say on that. Listen, like when all the prevailing facts and all the prevailing science shows that like trans people are valid, systemic racism is a thing, and like proposes like meaningfully left-leaning like kinds of solutions to these various problems, like, yeah, like I'm sorry if you're mad about it, but like you can be mad about it. You can just be a science denier. That's cool. Just own it. That's all I'm going to say on it.
Support over the years. I mean, you would retweet some of my columns for Playboy, so I really appreciate that. You know, I still call myself a liberal, and I think it's really sad because
still calls herself, fucking called it. God damn it. It's a fucking classical liberal meme all over again.
Nailed it.
Oh my fucking god. Get some Riley gods in chat. Amazing.
Will never die.
The meme will actually never die. Amazing.
These issues that I'm writing about are not partisan issues, especially when we talk about gender transition in children, which I don't think is appropriate because the research does not back that as the best way forward for these kids. This has become so polarized. And I'm thinking at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you're on the left or the right. If these children are making decisions that are not going to be beneficial to them and their health, that's really what we should be talking about. So it's very strange for me because I see many people who would have been my allies, so-called allies, maybe even 5 years ago. They really do not care for what I have to say and in fact consider me to be a threat. And so I think that has woken me up quite a bit in terms of seeing what the left has become. But again, I still feel at the core I do have liberal principles. So that's why.
Okay, I think this is basically the end of it. The only thing I'll really add is that, like, I love how, especially, like, people who are more turfy will usually make this kind of appeal to, I just care about the children. I just care about the well-being of the children. That's all I care about. It's like, I just care about the children. And then they will actively do things, like we discussed earlier, which contribute to, like, higher suicide rates of trans youth, right? These people are fucking hypocrites. I don't even care.
Yes, they are hypocrites. They're also, I mean... What can you say? Like they've literally and look, you know, to give some credit, not credit, that's the wrong word, but I mean, I guess on the one hand you could say, well, they're just having a conversation, they shouldn't have to cite stuff. But I would at least expect, right, that there'd be citations for the stuff they're talking about, maybe like in the YouTube.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, here, yeah. Let's look at some of the. Hold on, let's see. Is there any citations in the video description? Dr. Debrah, what is the conservative solution to student diet? Nope. Ben Shapiro reacts to AOC's absolutely insane coronavirus rant. Nope. Canadian challenges Shapiro on socialized medicine. Nope. Purchase your copy of my new goddamn book. Yeah, not a single goddamn citation. Not one. Not one. You know, for someone who prides himself on being so focused on facts over feelings, I'm getting a distinct lack of facts here. I don't know. I feel kind of devoid of facts from your end, Ben Shapiro.
And here's something to think about. Okay, that I think is really interesting. So let's say someone watched the segment you did on Blair White's video, right? Which is like, you know. They will be able to, like, you know, you've given them information they can go and look into themselves. You've given them more knowledge, more, you know, understanding,
for
right?
Sure.
Whereas this, you know, and try and be unbiased in me asking this, right? Apart from the books, which obviously they've got a fucking financial interest to shill, what can you go to off the back of this video, and only this video, to research, to read, to find out more about this? Like, just off what they've said in the video.
Goddamn nothing.
Yeah, right. Like, but that's the thing. The key thing to bear in mind here, and this is why, like, you know, obviously I hate transphobia. Of course I do, and you know, I'm not saying that like a trans person should go and justify their existence to a transphobe, but you've got to have a certain amount of, at least, if not compassion, understanding that someone in this video and getting propagandized into this. You know, they're not given the option or the out to go and find out more about trans people to actually understand it, right? They're literally propagandized. You know, they're battered around the head with this propaganda until they have the wrong opinions, the wrong views that aren't based in facts. Do you see where I'm coming from? Does that make sense?
Oh no, I completely agree with you. Like, these people just basically, like, they just hope that with the combination of his wide audience, and like vaguely gesturing at a. So like the wide audience, and then like vaguely gesturing at like this intrinsic quality of in this case their this intrinsic quality of credibility and trustworthiness on their part. They just hope that like by having both of those things that they'll be able to convince enough people to believe this, even though they don't cite a single like actual empiric authority to be able to back up what they're saying, right? Like that's basically what they're doing, right? Oh shit, what was that?
Sorry, I live by a main road and above a pub.
Oh, damn. So, oh, yeah, I think I remember hearing that. But yeah, so no, it really does suck because, like, there are a lot of people, probably, like, good, well-meaning people who will watch this and who will come away with, like, a misinformed view of what, you know, like, trans issues in America, right? Or, you know, the world for that matter. That's really the kind of the tragedy. The same with, like, the Blair White video. Like, it really is just it is just misinformation. That's all that it is. It's not even like I mean, like, it's unfortunate that like the Republican or the conservative party in America has become like the anti-science party, but like I'm firmly of the opinion that's basically where they're at nowadays, at least with these kinds of opinions, you know, like with this climate change and other related issues, right? Like it's just taking an anti-science position. I'm sorry, but like, you know, you can believe whatever you want, free country and all that, but like just own the fact that you're a science denier. Like if you want to believe these things, and like, hey, more power to you, but like do not say that facts and logic are on your side when they just aren't.
Completely agree with you. Yeah, I mean, what can you say? Like, Ben Shapiro doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. This Debrah Soh person is just, brain is literally pumped full of fucking custard, you know, and it's spilling out of her mouth, and the custard's just laced with transphobia. Like, that's basically what's happened here.
That's an amazing meme. Wonderful. 10 out of 10.